I feel like Rusty has a very different idea of what family dinners truly mean. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. The third episode of Presumed Innocent is here. It is called Discovery, which is a fitting title, as this episode is literally about trying to find more information and more facts for Tommy on his side, and for Rusty, who is trying to come up with another option to give the jury besides himself to just cause reasonable doubt. Like, hey, if I'm not the only one there, there are other people there. Let's go ahead and put them on the board so that not everything sort of just comes towards me. Full disclosure, I have to be honest. This is a hard show for me to review. Um, as I said in my previous video for this, I have read the book and I've seen the previous film, so the threads of where this is going are known to me. So I think anybody who's watching this blindly, you are in good shape. So it is hard for me. I'm going to do my best to try and review this show as a standalone without sort of prognosticating where it is going. So bear with me. What I do love about the show is that we don't get movies like this anymore. The Presumed Innocence or the Pelican Briefs or the A Time to Kills, those crime thrillers don't exist in movie theaters anymore. Movie theaters are already sort of having an issue with what's bringing audiences to, but that lower tier budget doesn't really do it. I think the last Just Mercy probably is sort of the last sort of court drama that was released in theaters, and that didn't do well. So I am glad to see something like this existing, and TV is sort of the best form to do it. I don't know if this show needs to be 8 episodes, maybe 5 or 6, because there are moments where I feel like it is trying to just stuff in things just for the sake of stuffing in things. And there's a couple of changes from the book, which I don't mind. The new detective that's added, things to sort of broaden the show. The one thing that I really don't like, and I know it is done for the purposes of being a show, I'm not a big fan of the tag at the end of every episode to sort of hook you to try to come back. I, as a grown adult, don't need it, but I know that there are a lot of people who watch TV in this format who do. So I know it's a choice, and I know they're doing it for a reason. I'm just not a fan of it. But neither here nor there. Let's talk about this episode called Discovery. At the end of the last episode, Rusty had a text that said, "I saw you. I know you were there. I saw you." And so he runs outside to call that number to try to get some information. Like, who the hell are you? Who are you? They hang up. He doesn't get an answer. Text back. They don't respond. Barbara comes out and is like, what the heck's going on? She shows him the text like, somebody saw me. Someone's watching me. It's at that point that Rusty lets Barbara know, I was there that night, which is something that she was not privy to. Something that a lot of people who are around this case and that should have Rusty's trust should know. He's not doing a good job of putting his best foot forward for people to believe him if he keeps holding things back. And so he says, like, yeah, I was there that night. I didn't kill her, but I was there that night. We learned in the last episode, we learned in the show that Rusty was really obsessed with her. For whatever reason, Barbara and he were in two different relationships, and Barbara believed that they were reconciling, and after the original affair with Carolyn, and thought they were kind of heading on the right track. Rusty clearly was still obsessed with Carolyn and wasn't getting what he was getting from Carolyn from Barbara, and kind of was still trying to search for that and feed for that. So it created a bit of an obsession. We see a scene where Raymond is dreaming that Rusty did kill Carolyn. And he wakes up to his wife and tells him the dream. He's like, well, do you think he did? He's like, no, I don't. I honestly don't believe Rusty did it. But he is having these dreams because he's sort of conflicted with inside. He is defending his best friend in a murder case. And his wife is like, well, there's sort of damned if you do. You're defending your best friend, and if you lose your best friend and lose a person and lose a lot of who you built up this person to be. And then what's the gain for that? like you're doing it just because you're getting bored and you don't want to become this decomposing rot. Like the only reason you're really kind of putting yourself out there like this, somebody else could take this case. The only reason you're choosing to do this is because you need to have that itch. You had that itch. You need to have that bite satiated again. And I feel like there are other ways you could do this besides putting yourself in this very high profile case. Also, we know that you want to stick it to Tommy and Nico. So there might be some underlying reasons of why you're doing this. Rusty comes and tells Raymond that he got the text and that he's going to go meet this person and search for this person. And Raymond's like, that's a bad idea. Twofold. One, why was this person knowing you were there and I didn't? Again, not telling the people that need to know the information that is impertinent to sort of try to get him off this case. Raymond says, go to the police. Take that to the police. You don't know if this is a setup. You don't know what this is. This person could be wearing a wire. You need to do what's best for you, Rusty, and turn that in so that the police know what's going on. So it doesn't also seem like you're hiding things from the police. Let's go ahead and give them as much information to sort of make it so that you are more of a sympathetic and more of a believable person who's on trial. Rusty does ignores all that and says, no, I'm going to go. He's like, okay, well, just be careful with whatever it is that you say. Because this could be used, it could be recorded, it could be used in the court against you. To that point, that Raymond lets him know, hey, just because of the nature of this case, I'm adding a woman. She's a great woman. She's great at her job, but I'm adding a woman to this just to kind of bolster our team. And her name is Maya. That's like, cool, sure. Then at this point, that Rusty starts sort of coming up with concoctions of like, hey, we need to find a person. Like I'm going to meet this person because if there's a chance that somebody else was at this scene of the crime, then I need to go find out who that was so we can sort of offer them up as another option. We need to say, hey, this person was there. He starts coming up with these different machinations of what could be, and basically to create an alibi. He's coming up with different ways to sort of create an alibi. And Raymond's like, hey, stop all of that. Stop all of that now. Let's get all the facts that we can before we start concocting an alibi, because the second we start doing that, somebody pulls out a string and your alibi completely falls apart. Let's get all the facts first. Shut up. Barbara goes to work and she's getting cameras. The paparazzi is all outside Rusty and them's home, like, and outside of her work too. And her work is being affected by this. She tries to get into work, and her boss is kind of like, don't come back. It's going to be best if you take a leave. She says take a leave, but we know this is sort of a firing. And she's not going to really be allowed back. Barbara says, hey, this is going to die off. Like, this isn't going to be the norm. We're in Chicago. Someone else is going to murder someone else in a minute, and they're going to move on to the next person. And they're like, yeah, we just can't take the chance of that. Barbara was kind of like, I need to be here. I need the distraction of work. I need to do something else to keep my mind off of it. And her boss is like, cool, but we don't need this type of distraction. So deuces. Barbara then goes to the bar and starts flirting with Mr. Insecure. For those who've seen Insecure, that is where that actor is from. But starts feeling the type of way, starts getting her flirt on with her to the point where Raymond's wife is like, hey, you should maybe push up on that. Get a little revenge affair going on. To which Barbara is not completely against, but not really leaning into either. Next, we see Detective Alana getting chewed out by Tommy and Nico, basically telling her to stand down. Stop. You still work for this firm. Stop doing things to help Rusty. Like, stop it. We know that you met with the prisoner who Rusty believes may be the reason why this is going on. Alana's like, well, why aren't you looking into it? Like, why aren't you? You guys are so steadfast in this being Rusty. You're not doing your due diligence to say, hey, why was she murdered in the same way that this person that's in prison is done? Like, maybe we should actually look into that. And they're just kind of like, stop it, shut it down. Into which she's like, okay, cool. She leaves the office and then she digs deeper and looks into some more medical files. So she's completely ignoring whatever it is Tommy and Nico have to say. So Rusty gets to the scene to meet with the person who texted him, and it's Michael, who is Carolyn's son. And he's like, I saw you there that night, and I just wanted to see your face. I wanted to see your face. He says, yeah, I have video and I have photos of you on this night and that you were there. And Rusty was like, well, if you have those photos and video, that means you also were there that night. So Rusty's kind of thinking in his brain, like, well, then I can put you in that place as well. At that point, Rusty's like, well, either turn it into the police or give it to me now. Like, and that's when Michael's like, I've already turned it into the police. Now, this is where this is interesting because turned it into the police, that means Tommy and them already have it, but Tommy and them have not made uh, Raymond and Rusty aware of that. And so whenever evidence is sort of introduced, both the prosecutors and the defense are supposed to be able to have access to those files and to that information, so that it's sort of a level playing field when they come to the case. Tommy's sort of hiding that and closing that to the vest. So in the next sequence, we see Tommy get sort of caught with his hand up his ass because the judge, who is very matter of fact and down the line, she has a great analogy to hemorrhoids in here, where she's like, I don't have time for any of this BS. We're going to just do it like it's supposed to be done. But Raymond hits him with, I hear you have photos and videos of another person at the murder scene, and Tommy's kind of starts stuttering and stammering. He's like, well, that just came to us this morning. We need to go through it and kind of dice it all out. And the judge is like, at the same time that you need to do that, so does the defense, and so do I. So stop playing around and make that available to all of us. Um, so it's a cool kind of way that Tommy gets sort of slapped on the hand. It's like, we're not, whatever it is you think you're going to be doing in this case, we're not doing that. We're going to play this by the book. Then the fantastic family dinner occurs, where Rusty sitting down to eat, and they're kind of all like, got out on bail. I think we have a shot, and to the point where Kyle and Jaden sort of start asking questions about like, hey, what's the likelihood of you getting out of this? Like, what is like set up against you that we know what's going on in this court? And Barbara's like, no, let's not talk about that at the table. And Rusty's like, no, let's do it. Because I think what's happening here is Rusty is realizing that, hey, I have been, anybody who is on my side, who is with me, I have not been fully open. I've not been fully honest. Screw it. Let's go ahead and lay it out on the table. And he does. And he lays it all out. Talks about the affair, how long it's been going on, obviously that she was pregnant, what they're going to say, how he has been pretty obsessed with her for that last couple 2 weeks. They're going to put all that evidence in front of her. I was there the night of and so all of this kind of comes out. Pretty damning, to the point where it's like, if you don't really know how the prosecution and defense work, which I don't know how much these kids have information of how the law goes, probably basic level of like, oh, my dad works for them. It feels pretty damning. You're like, I don't see how you would get out of this. This seems like you're going to lose, and I'm going to lose my father forever. To which Kyle is like, well, have you ever considered taking a plea? And he's like, wait, why would I take a plea? Like, I didn't do it. I would not plead to something that I did not do. And manslaughter has a lesser term. Manslaughter is like an 8-year term versus life for murder. And so that's what he sort of is offering and saying that that's maybe you should take that. And like, you could tell that it affects Rusty in a way, because he thinks like, my son doesn't believe me. Like, my son thinks I did this. Oh, I'm sorry, what? He goes to the bathroom, sort of freaks out. It's like, they don't believe me. They think that I may have done this. Barbara comes to sort of reconcile and is like, no, it's just he doesn't want to lose you forever. Like, that is his fear. He doesn't want to lose you forever. Then we hear Kyle in the hallway saying, hey, Dad, I'm sorry. I don't think you did it. I don't think you did it. And I don't want you to think that I think you did it. I'm scared. Like, that's what they are. Nico and Tommy meet, and Nico's kind of like, I would drop this obstruction charge, like, because that feels more vindictive and is about law. We don't need to worry about any of that. We need to get him dead to rights on the murder piece of it. And Tommy's like, no, I want it all. So at that point, then Nico's like, I don't know if I don't know if you're the right person for this job. You hate Rusty. Like, I can tell you hate Rusty. And Tommy's like, no, I don't hate him. And he goes like, shut up. I can tell. You hate him. You don't like this man. And so you are coming at this in a vindictive way that could cost us the case, because you're not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, you are so seeing red that you're not clearly focused on what we can get, and you're trying to just get him dead to rights on everything. We meet the new lawyer who comes and just matter of facts to Rusty. She's trying to get more information about the case, and it seems sort of cold, but she's like, did you love Carolyn? And what was it about lust or love? And so then she asked, like, do you remember the first time that you had an emotional attachment to Carolyn? He's like, and I don't mean in a carnal sense, like sex. I don't mean that. Like, when did you? She's like, no, I got it. I understand what you're asking. And Rusty kind of goes through the first moment where he sort of saw Carolyn in a form, like they were doing a case and there was a kid that was on trial. I can't remember what the trial was for, but she had to sort of make that kid feel at ease to get on the stand and to be in the courtroom. She how she was speaking to that kid and saying like, hey, if you need anything and if there's ever a point where you want to stop, you want to go for a walk, just raise your hand and we'll take you out to court. Um, that sort of invoked an emotional response, an emotional lust in him for her. He saw her in a light that he did not see her in before, and it sort of came more than that. It's like, and I genuinely cared and loved her, to the point that I could not and would not harm her. And he's like, whoever did, is having a grandiose laugh at his expense. The way that he was coming across in that obsession seems bad if you don't think that he actually loved her. And so they have to build a case where he's like, I was madly in love with him, which is going to do a lot of damage to whatever the hell he has going with Barbara. Because I'd imagine Barbara and the family are going to be in that courtroom the whole time. This is not going to do well for them. Rusty's whole big thing is that he wants to present when the jury sees all this horrific evidence. They see her tied up in the scenes of the photos of the murder scene. He wants to then be able to present to them another option. And so he's going through photos. He needs to go through everything to be able to come up with, there has to be somebody else who was there on the scene who I can offer up as sort of an option. Michael, who was there, isn't so clean of an option because while, yes, it does create some sort of reasonable doubt, that's her son, and it's a little less likely that he's going to be the person that you offer up. So at the end of this episode, we get Rusty combing through, and we see a photo of Kyle was near the scene on a bike with headphones running and riding his bike. Well, damn. Okay. That presents a couple of issues. One, we as an audience are not to believe that Kyle knew about the affair. Now, if he is there, that would imply that he either was following his father and is aware of it in some capacity, or knew about it on his own and just wound up there. There's a third option where he may have been following somebody else who may have known, like his sister may have known, his mother may have known somehow, but the photo we see now is there of Kyle. This goes into how good of a father is Rusty. Because the reason why he's going through these photos is like, I need to be able to offer somebody up. Is he, to save his own ass, going to be a person that says, hey, my son was there too? Maybe he did it? That would be a grimy thing to do and would make these family dinners a lot more uncomfortable. But that is sort of the thing that Rusty has to play with now is like, hey, I have this information that my kid was there. I now have to approach him to be like, hey, why were you at the scene? Who he's hiding for or what he's hiding is going to come to light, perhaps in some form or fashion. And it sort of creates a big rip of, I know how Russ is going to approach this. He's going to think of everything to possibly save his hide. And now this seems to be the best case scenario. And does he present this to anybody else? Does he come to Kyle himself? Or does he go to Raymond and be like, hey, this is what's happening? Probably not, because he wants to keep his son safe. Because if he presents this to Raymond, Raymond then has to present this to the defense. And trust me, the defense is eventually going to see this, but they are probably going to do everything to not put Kyle on the scene because that muddies the waters of who could be here. So as long as he doesn't present this to Raymond, I think this will stay out of the case. But that's the episode. A really solid episode. I love these slow-moving crime thrillers. We don't get much of this, so it's fun to have them. But what are you guys thinking about this show so far? What do you guys think about this episode called Discovery? Go ahead and leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name. That's the Google Podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcast, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.